Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. Well, an interesting topic kind of popped into my head after seeing this meme. I've seen it pop up on a few friends' Facebook pages. I think I might have even seen it on Twitter. And, it's kind of funny and it's kind of true. In a sense that I used to play video games a little bit more regularly when I was a lot younger. And now that I've, obviously matured, I don't. I try to sometimes. And, it just kind of makes sense when you look at something like this and you say, after the repeated attempts to play games, to only to find out, the longer games that used to be pleasurable as a child are no longer as pleasurable. And you just need to play something smaller. Um, Now, as a kid, obviously, I grew up with games that didn't take a long time to play. I played on my television a lot, and most of those games were single screen games. Maybe if you had a game that had two or three multiple screens. Probably the most advanced game I had was the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, where you get to, start off on a map screen, then you get to go into tunnels and stuff and find things. But the average game would be like 5 minutes, if that. You didn't spend a lot of time playing that specific game, and you'd beat it, maybe play it again. But what I remember doing the most was always playing a game, and popping it out and putting in another game. Okay, now Space Armada, pop it out, put in another game. Now Burger Time, now Donkey Kong. So I always remember doing that when I was a kid, and it wasn't until the Nintendo years when I was a teenager, and I actually started playing the longer games. Well, maybe even on the Commodore 64, I had some titles that did take some time. One of my favorite games on the Commodore 64 is Rags to Riches, and there's no saving in that game. You have to literally play through it, and it does take a long time if you know what you're doing. Um, but even then, a successful game is going to be about 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, and you're done. It wasn't until, like I said, until like the Nintendo era when something like The Legend of Zelda or Dragon Warrior, where you actually have to like save your game. Like, yeah, I know there's some people that can play it and not have to save their game and they can rip right through the game. But I'm talking about when I first started playing it and, I didn't know where everything was and I had the time to just sit there and play and play and play and play. Even games like Super Mario Brothers 3, I remember spending almost an entire day just playing that game non-stop, leaving the Nintendo on so I didn't have to lose my my data, if I turned it off, that kind of thing. And I remember having the time to play it. I never got into really the big RPG style games, but even still, some of those games that, like I said, like The Legend of Zelda, that let you save your progress, those are great because you get to come back and continue playing and then come back and continue playing. Of course, there's always the problem, though, when you get to my age now, where you start a game like Zelda or Zelda 2 or something, or Zelda 3, any of the Zeldas for that matter, and you get to a point where you're like, okay, I got other things I need to do. Then life kind of happens. You have your job, you got other things. Maybe you want to play other games in between. And then you try and revisit that game again, and now you're like, where was I? What am I doing? I kind of ran into that problem with the Breath of the Wild. I started playing it, and I got so far, and, I got all this stuff, and, and then I kind of stopped. I kind of stopped playing it. I didn't have the time anymore. I was just kind of like, um, I got other things I need to do, and I haven't really gone back into it. And now I'd be kind of afraid to go back into it because I don't think I would know what I was doing. I'd have to relearn all the controls on it because, the controller on the Switch has like lots of buttons. And then I'd have to remember what everything does and where I was going, what I was trying to accomplish. And I would probably end up just restarting the entire thing and starting right from the very beginning, which isn't going to help me very much because I'll probably do the same thing. I'll get to a point where I'll just stop playing it. And then I'm going to want to try something else new. And it's like, it kind of like, I don't know. When I was younger, I think I was more prone to want to spend that time and try and get through a game. Now it's like if I want to play these games, I'm going to stick to something I really know what I'm doing, like Zelda, the first one, like The Legend of Zelda on the NES, and like I know where most of the stuff is, and I could probably beat it, within a day or two, and I'll be satisfied with that. I don't know if I could get into the longer more games that require a lot more time to play it, which was why I was kind of skeptical myself when I bought Breath of the Wild, wondering how far I was actually going to get into it. But my daughter, she's a teenager, and she really got into it. So she really got a lot further, and now she wants to get the next one, the Tears of the Kingdom, to continue on. So, which kind of leaves me still struggling to play the first one. I even had the same problem with the N64 version. I remember I didn't have a lot of time to play it, even back then. But then when I was unemployed for a small period of time, a couple months, I just sat down and every day I was just playing and playing and playing and playing and playing. So obviously I had more time then. I didn't have a job, so what else was I going to do? I was spending a little bit of my time looking for a job and then the rest of the time playing video games. But now that I have a family, I have a full-time job, I have many hobbies that I like to do. I play cards. I like to collect cards and collectible card games, not just cards. And I'm also making games for the Intellivision, which does take up a substantial amount of time to work through a game and come up with the coding and all that other stuff and then test it. And then newer ideas keep coming in. And then I got my YouTube channel. I got 2 YouTube channels, actually. My other one is Cardmaster Brian, which I've kind of put together just to do my card stuff in. And even that channel, I kind of haven't done much on it in a long time because I don't have time. And really, that's what it just comes down to is time and what time you're willing to allocate to your hobby of playing video games. And I'm sure a lot of you who are watching this, you're probably around my age. You're probably thinking the same thing. I got my family, I got my job, I got my stuff to do. You got X amount of hobbies. And squeezing in video games, you're not going to really have the time to play a lot of these long-winded games. And so maybe playing the short games might be better. Games like Pac-Man, games like Donkey Kong, games like all the different, the old classics. And yeah, sure, the new Atari VCS is coming out with like these modern style retro games, which are kind of cool. Kind of neat to see these types of games coming out. Sticking to that type of stuff might actually be beneficial when you don't have the time to spend on the long games. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's just something like all this I got out of this silly little meme. I mean, most people are going to read that and be like, oh, whatever. I spend all my time video gaming when I have time. I would like to sometimes, but then there's times I just feel like doing a lot of other things. And video games really, for me, end up becoming, when I do my videos, I end up playing video games. Just because I got so many things to do. And, even when I have time off, sometimes I just want to lay on the couch and watch some TV. Nothing wrong with that. Anyways, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. I want to hear what you have to say, though. What do you think between playing the longer games versus playing the shorter games? Because both of them have value, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the short games. But the long games, there's nothing wrong with those either. If that's what you like to do, if you really love the story, the plot, getting into it, the adventure, or just the sheer amount of time it takes to complete, maybe that's your thing. Anyways, I'd like to hear what you have to say. Throw some comments down below. Hope you subscribe, and we'll talk to you later.